So the Portland City Council planned to take a big stand against the new Texas abortion law by banning trade with the Lone Star State. But a lot of people asked, is that really going to do anything, or is it just performative? And doesn't City Council have a lot of other pressing issues to focus on, like, I don't know, the homeless crisis, or ongoing gun violence, or the fact that Portland police are now exempt from the city's COVID vaccine mandate, all because of some confusing language?
What did you think when you read probably not?
Well, that's not really an answer. Probably not is a guess.
Here's the story.
Okay, boy, oh boy, stuff to talk about tonight. I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to The Story. I'm going to say some stuff off the top here that I think you might want to say some stuff in response to. And there's an easy way to do that. Just look at the bottom of your screen right now. Jot that stuff down. You can connect with us over email. Just write us at thestory@kgw.com. You can hit me up on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, or you can use Twitter and the hashtag #HeyDan. Let's get going. The big story tonight, the big story. It's pretty big. It's a biggie. So Texas basically outlawed abortions. I'm sure you know this. You've heard this already. Everybody's talking about this. You can't avoid it. This new Texas law says people can't get an abortion in the state of Texas after 6 weeks. And since most people don't even know they're pregnant by that point, it pretty much outlaws abortions. The governor signed this. The Supreme Court signed off on it. It is done. This is a thing there. This is massive news for everyone, pro-choice and pro-life. Right now, all of Texas is at odds over this. I mean, pretty much everybody's at odds over it, but all of Texas is, and that state is currently battling, even inside the Republican Party, which wrote, drafted, and signed this law, especially over the fact that it includes victims of rape and victims of incest. You should care about this. You should spend some time reading about this. There are a few topics that divide people like this one. And if you are an adult who doesn't fully understand your stance on it and the stance of the people who oppose you, turn off this show right now and go get to it. Because as you can see, when you vote people into power, they might wield that power on life-changing issues, which may be why the people who we voted into power in Portland are trying to turn the tide. Last week, Mayor Wheeler announced an emergency resolution to ban commerce with Texas and travel in protest. An emergency resolution bringing the entire council together for the first time in more than a month. More than a month. They're coming together for an emergency resolution about Texas. Not for our record gun violence or the dwindling police force that still hasn't signed a contract, or the fact that we just recorded the most homicides in the city in 25 years. Not for the trash piling up on our streets or the businesses struggling to stay staffed and to stay open. Not for the homeless population that suffers in record numbers in plain sight. Or to address the fact that the plans that we have to help those people are developed with less urgency than me eating a bowl of cereal before it goes soggy. I mean, do you remember the tiny villages, right, the council approved that they claimed would be open in September? Well, we just found out they haven't even agreed on a single location yet. Let me check the calendar, which is on my watch. It's September. No, first, we have to tighten the financial screws on Texas, a state that is 7 times bigger than us, with about as many Fortune 500 companies as we have Dutch Bros. I got an email from Linda. She said, "Hey, Dan, what exactly does the city of Portland buy from Texas? Is this just a play to the base gesture with no real teeth or consequences?" It's a great question. It's a great question, Linda. And thanks to City Hall reporter Shane Kavanaugh at the Oregonian, we know that the city has spent about $35 million in the last 5 years with Texas-based companies. Is that a lot? For me, yes. For Texas, they're like, which Portland? And it brings me to a story that we think is worth your time. The Oregonian Editorial Board, they published this piece today. I wish I could just spend some time right now and read the whole thing to you. You should hop on it right when you're done with this show and read it yourself. It discusses the importance of the Texas abortion law. It addresses the fact that Portland Council has been essentially MIA for the past 6 weeks while the city spirals in crisis. It asks important questions about this whole Texas boycott idea, like, and I'll quote here, does that include airfare purchased at on American Airlines, which is headquartered in Fort Worth, food products from Houston behemoth Cisco, facial tissue or toilet paper from Dallas-based Kimberly-Clark? A city spokeswoman on Tuesday said details of the boycott are not yet available, probably because they didn't have them. Council probably read that and said, oh yeah, those are good questions, before then deciding to table the entire thing before today's meeting. The emergency apparently can wait. No, the irony has not eluded me, especially after one of the specific things that they did talk about in the meeting today, when the mayor admitted how ineffective the city's Choose Love initiative was to stopping the violence between Antifa and the Proud Boys.
But it is clear, based on the public outcry, on the media outcry, on the national front, that that strategy was not the right strategy. I think we can all acknowledge that. I take full responsibility for it. I think we all acknowledge we want to do better.
The public outcry, the media, the national front, that's how you know the strategy didn't work. See, because I knew when I saw two groups fighting in the street, using weapons, hitting women, and tipping over a van, spanning hours with no police in sight. I mean, I can't believe they didn't choose love. If only we had years of evidence to suggest they wouldn't. It all takes me to one of the closing remarks from the Oregonian editorial. Our city leaders' focus must be on taking meaningful action that benefit the lives of the people they represent, not on progressive preening to score some short-term points. All that said, the mayor did take action on another issue today, or rather he said the city will not take action. Actually, they can't take action. Look, here's the headline. The city of Portland will not mandate police officers to get the COVID vaccine. Every other city employee, they have to get it. Police, no. The mayor blames new guidance issued by the state, but not everyone's reading that guidance the same. Maggie Vespa here now. Now look, the Oregon Health Authority, they issued the new guidance and they talk about who's covered under the mandate. And the guidance literally says when talking about police that they are, quote, probably not covered.
Probably not.
Right.
This is official guidance from the state. It says probably not. And at this point, the city is taking that to mean they can't mandate police officers get the vaccine. At the same time, Multnomah County says specific to deputies, they're reevaluating whether they can mandate that, but they called the wording confusing. And then also there are lawsuits against the state kind of taking aim at these mandates, and this is definitely giving those some new fuel.
With its ICUs still overwhelmed by COVID and more than 1,000 new cases being reported every day, Oregon's vaccine mandates are back under a legal microscope, and the view is murky.
That is not helpful. That is not helpful guidance at all.
Attorney Dan Tennell is currently suing the state over vaccine mandates, and even he's confused by the Oregon Health Authority's latest guidance. Issued Friday, it states police officers are probably not subject to the state's mandate that all healthcare workers get vaccinated because, quote, it is likely not a fundamental part of their job to provide direct or indirect medical care. Officials had previously argued law enforcement officers were covered by the mandate because they're trained to provide basic first aid.
What did you think when you read probably not?
That's not really an answer. Probably not is a guess.
As a result of the state's new guidance, first reported by OPB, the city of Portland now says it cannot include police officers in its employee vaccine mandate. Mayor Ted Wheeler telling KGW in a statement, quote, I am disappointed that we can't hold all of our city employees to the same vaccine requirement. But he added state law prohibits it. Staff with Multnomah County aren't ready to write sheriff's deputies out of their employee mandate. A rep writing, we have reached out to the governor's office and the OHA for clarification because the guidance was confusing.
I'll likely get fired over this video.
The shifts are just the latest examples amid mounting pushback against vaccine mandates. Earlier this month, Oregon State Police placed trooper Zachary Cowing on leave for blasting the requirement on Instagram.
I have personal and religious reasons as to why I will not take the vaccine, but also the freedom to choose not to.
Days later, dozens of state troopers and firefighters filed a lawsuit against the state and the governor, declaring mandates unlawful because they violate state and federal rights to freedom of expression. Tennell is the lawyer behind that lawsuit, and he says no one is denying COVID case rates are dire. The Oregon Health Authority reported 5,800 new cases of COVID-19 over the Labor Day weekend, and Governor Kate Brown defended vaccine mandates again Tuesday.
COVID-19 is still very dangerous and unpredictable for those who are not yet vaccinated.
Still, Tennell argues first responders who have signed up to serve the public shouldn't be forced.
What do you say to people who are undoubtedly sitting at home, they're listening to this and they're just fed up and with vaccine resistance, and they say, no, this is how you serve people, by getting vaccinated, protecting yourself, protecting others?
That's the answer for them, but that doesn't mean they should impose that opinion on other people.
Now, it is worth noting, because this isn't complex enough already, that state troopers are covered actually by two mandates. There's the healthcare worker one, which is now in question thanks to this guidance. And then there's a second mandate that all state employees, everybody, gets the COVID vaccine by October 18th. And right now, that one still stands. And Dan, that's what this lawsuit is going after.
Back to Portland Police, though. How do they feel about this exemption?
Yeah, so the labor union hasn't gotten back to us, and that's pretty rare. They're pretty vocal, as you know, so I'll let you know if that changes. The Bureau itself is not taking a stance on this vaccine mandate. And they also told us they don't have hard data as to how many officers have gotten the vaccine at this point, but they believe most Portland police officers have.
Now, we were talking about this earlier, how this bit of new fuel might inspire some other lawsuits.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the one lawsuit already. And then that lawyer that I talked to, Dan Tennell, he said, my phone has been flooded. He estimated 500 calls from state employees across Oregon. And we're not talking about law enforcement. He said the Department of Forestry, DHS, ODOT, and he told me he expects to file more lawsuits in the coming days.
Not surprising. All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's count who is getting vaccinated. More than 2.73 million Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose. That's almost 65% of the state's entire population, and that's everybody. That includes even kids who are under 12 and can't get the vaccine yet. In Washington, more than 5.24 million people have gotten at least their first dose. That works out to be nearly 69% of the state's entire population, including kids. I got this email from Kathy. Kathy wrote, can you tell me where we can get a COVID test in the Portland metro area? It's a pretty good question, because tests are actually kind of hard to find lately, and it's because of, well, an obvious reason. The COVID surge right now has tests back in high demand. So let's bring in Tim Gordon and talk about this. Tim, where can people get tested?
All right, Dan. Well, there are a variety of places, as you said, though. Resources not keeping up with demand right now. But OHSU is doing something about that. They've got a brand new testing site set up, reopened actually at the Expo Center in North Portland. That started today. And so if you want to test for any reason, they will help you out. It's a low barrier testing site. And so you can just go and do that after booking an appointment. And there's no cost to you for getting that test at the Expo Center. 4,000 tests a week they think they can do at full capacity. And so that's going to help a lot getting this thing in line to get people tested. The demand is certainly higher, Dan.
What kind of test is it? What can people expect if they drive through there?
Okay, so this is the PCR test. So it's the one, they're going to stick the swab up your nose, the unpleasant test, but it is certainly the most accurate one. And that'll take about 48 hours to get the results back for you. But that's a PCR test by OHSU there at the North Portland site, the Expo Center.
Got it. Tim, thanks for the update.
You bet.
All this week, we've asked you to share your stories and memories from 9/11. And some of you reminded us about a time that a group of Oregonians traveled to New York to support the city after the attacks.
Let's make sure New Yorkers get the message that the rest of the country is with them, not just because we say so, but because we're doing something about it.
Thank you, Oregon. We love you.
We'll look back at the fight for freedom in the KGW vault when the story continues.
Welcome back. I always go through your questions and comments. We got some pretty good ones after the first top of that show there. So I'm going to address a few. I'm already thinking of a couple in my mind right now that I want to talk about at the end of the show. So please keep them coming. Write us at thestory@kgw.com or use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Also, don't forget about our Hey Help campaign. People, they stop me out in the community and tell me, hey, we really love this. So this week we're asking you to please consider donating to the Portland Fruit Tree Project. They collect and distribute fruit to people in need, and they'll go to places in town that just have fruit growing on the trees, and if you want them to come harvest it and pick it up and distribute it, they will do that. So if you want to help them out in other ways too, you can donate. Hold the camera on your phone to the QR code you see on your screen. It'll give you a link to donate, take you to a donation page there, or you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp. And these are micro donation campaigns. Just a small amount of money that people can give really make a difference. Last week, all of you raised $10,000 for Milk Crate Kitchen. It's a chef who makes meals for people in need, and that's a lot of money for them. That can help a ton of people out. So big thank you to everyone helping. Let's keep it going. Now, Saturday is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We've been asking you to send in some of your memories from that day and some of the aftermath memories after those attacks. We've gotten so many messages from you, so thank you to everybody letting us know these things. Jane sent this one in. I've lived in Portland a long time, but I'm from NYC. Saw the towers being built, and after the shock and horror of seeing my hometown attacked in that way, I was compelled to join an organization an organized trip to NYC, coordinated by Show DeZono and Vera Katz and others in October of 2001, around Columbus Day. The flight was designed as a way people from Portland could support the city of New York and its people. This may be somewhere in the KGW vault. Thank you, Jane, so much. And you're right, it was in the KGW vault. We found it. So let's take a look back with Ashley Korsland.
It's been 20 years since 9/11 forever changed the world, and 20 years since a cross-country flight forever changed the lives of Oregonians and New Yorkers.
You know, they turned on the rain for us.
Just weeks after the 2001 terror attack, leaders in Oregon announced the Flight for Freedom. This is archive news coverage from KGW.
In true pioneer spirit, these Oregonians will journey back east to Manhattan as a way to encourage Americans to return to their normal lives.
It was a symbolic flight from the Beaver State to the Empire State, encouraging people to fly again and help revitalize New York's economy.
Let's make sure New Yorkers get the message that the rest of the country is with them, not just because we say so, but because we're doing something about it.
Show DeZono helped organize the trip.
A small idea became a big idea.
At the time, he ran Ozumano Travel Service.
There I am right there.
Which saw business plummet in the weeks after 9/11.
Down 100%, nobody's flying, you couldn't go anywhere.
We recently showed him this old video of the trip.
Pretty amazing turnout of people.
And he still vividly remembers his first moments at Ground Zero.
New York was still smoldering when we got there. The Ground Zero people were still looking for bodies.
In all, there were 62 flights as part of the Flight for Freedom, bringing 1,000 Oregonians to New York.
We love New York! This is the greatest moment of my life. It is so great to be an Oregonian right now.
The delegation met with firefighters and even marched in the Columbus Day Parade.
I'm not sure warm is even the word for it. It's just phenomenal.
It was a time New Yorkers needed support more than ever.
It's wonderful to see that another state came to support us.
And Oregonians gave it to them.
I'm glad you guys are here to help us.
What they called the core group.
Oregonians like Sally Borey.
At the time, I was a freelance writer.
Who says the Flight for Freedom was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
20 years later, like many people on the trip, it was one of the most moving milestones of my life.
The trip was so impactful, Borey has now written a book about it. It's called Oregon Loves New York, a story of American unity after 9/11.
Knowing now that I've been able to leave this for people to always know about an important event in history.
Some 700 pages are filled with personal stories and photographs from the trip.
There's the story of the street sweeper coming up to one of the guys and saying, "Thank you for coming." Because we had those T-shirts and these buttons, everybody recognized us. They would ask for hugs, they'd give you hugs, they'd cry. They tell you their 9/11 stories.
Now, 20 years later,
That's hard to believe.
the people featured in Bori's book might look a little different.
He looks a lot younger than he does now.
But the message behind their story is timeless. We need to come together just like we did in 2001.
1,000 Oregonians from all walks of life, the entire political spectrum, showed up for this. And nobody asked, what's your politics? Nobody asked, what's your status in life?
A lesson Bori hopes we can learn from 2 decades later.
It's something that's extremely important for today, where we live in such a divided country right now.
Do you hope we can get some sense of that unity back?
Absolutely. And I do think it's possible. This is a true story that shows that it is possible.
Ashley Korsland, KGW News.
Thanks to Ashley, and you can reserve a copy of that book at the Oregon Historical Society. And tomorrow at noon, you can watch a presentation about the Flight for Freedom on the OHS YouTube page. Now, if you have a story or you have a memory from 9/11 or the aftermath that you'd like to share with us, we're open. We want to hear it. All right, so tell us what you remember. Email us at thestory@kgw.com. Find us on Facebook or use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Now, last week on the show, we had a story showing you the impact this single homeless camp has in Portland. We talked to neighbors, we talked to nearby businesses, and we talked to people living in the camp itself. If you missed it, please check it out right now at the KGW YouTube channel. Now, a big concern with homeless camps is the trash produced by people living there, and it seems like there is an obvious solution, right? I mean, we get people write us in about this all the time. One viewer said it this way: why aren't there big dumpsters at every homeless camp that get emptied regularly? Well, it turns out a big reason that there aren't usually dumpsters near homeless camps, according to the city of Portland, is because of people who have homes. The city says they've found that when they put dumpsters like that near camps, that they're largely used by the people who are housed, the people who live nearby. They take things to that dump that they no longer want. And actually, most of the bigger piles of trash, we've done stories on this before, that you see around the city, don't come from homeless people. According to Metro, as of last week, 61% of the trash at sites that they clean up was residential trash from people who have homes. That's the purple section you see on the graph, the big chunk. How do they know this? Well, they look at the trash. They look at stuff like mail or labels on medication. They look at surveillance video from the area to come to that conclusion. They say only about 22% of the trash, it's not a small amount, 22% of the trash that they pick up around the metro area comes from homeless people. That's the light blue section there. But the city says another reason they don't put dumpsters near homeless camps is because they're afraid that would just make the camps grow bigger and have more people come to live there because they have a dumpster to use. So what can you do then if there is a homeless camp or a lot of trash even in your neighborhood? Well, you can report homeless camps in Portland to the city's one point of contact system. It's on their website. A crew may come out to see if they need to clean things up, but the city says they won't respond to every report. They just don't have the resources for it. If there's a lot of trash that isn't necessarily connected to a homeless camp that you think needs to get out of there, then you can report it to Metro's RID Patrol. They take care of illegally dumped garbage, and right now, their response time is just under 2 weeks. So continue to be patient. All right, keep sending in questions and comments to the story at kgw.com. I'll finish with a few when we finish the story next. All right, quick programming note before we get to comments. We're not going to have a show tomorrow because of the start of the NFL season, but we're going to be back on Friday. In the meantime, as you're watching some football, maybe this map from Thrillist will help you out a little bit. Arch Pope tweeted this to me and said, "Hey, Dan, why didn't you tell me? I've been celebrating Timbers wins wrong all this time. Apparently, the place to party, right, is a strip mall parking lot with raw pizza." So this map shows the most iconic post-game spots, and apparently ours is a Papa Murphy's, despite the fact you can't actually eat there with the whole, take and bake thing. If you live in Washington, looks like you'll be stopping by a Starbucks after the game for a cold brew. If you disagree with this map, if you're not looking to party at Papa Murphy's after the big win, let me know. Where do you go? Where should we go? Use that hashtag, #HeyDan. Tell me your actual favorite post-game spot. I got one message today from KJTW. Please stop with the, quote, people who are pregnant woke speak. So, look, when we were talking about the abortion law in Texas, I didn't even know I wrote this. I said people typically don't even know that they're pregnant until 6 weeks, right? I think that's the way it was phrased. I didn't even realize I was saying that. Okay, so how about this? Women don't typically know they're pregnant until 6 weeks. Can you understand the story now? The bigger story? Because that's what we're paying attention to. It's so, we just want to find that one thing, don't we? And just, let me just focus right here and miss the whole point. Because the one thing that one thing, we need to work on that. We really do. My intent was not to offend. In fact, I had no intent in that sentence whatsoever. I was trying to explain the facts of the story, which I really hope you are able to absorb or have a comment on the big picture of the topics we're talking about. But that doesn't mean I discourage those types of comments. I like them, so I appreciate them, and I will address them. Feel free to write me back if you disagree. Have a good one. No show tomorrow. See you on Friday to close out the week. That's the story.